الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وصحبه ومن سار على سبيل إلى يوم الدين أما بعد. If one of the volunteers can go and tell those boys to stop playing football downstairs. So it mentions, we're on ayah number 32, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, إن الله اصطفى آدم ونوحا وآل إبراهيم وآل عمران على العالمين ذرية بعضها من بعض والله سميع عليم. So here it mentions that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He chose Adam. Meaning Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala اختار آدم فخلقه بيديه. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala chose Adam and therefore created him with His own hands. وَنَفَخَ فِيهِ مِنْ رُوحِ, and also Allah blew His soul into him. وَأَسْجَدَ لَهُ مَلَائِكَتَهُ, and also caused or commanded the angels to all prostrate to Adam alayhi salam. Now, also of the things that I mentioned, وَعَلَّمَهُ أَسْمَاءَ كُلِّ شَيْءٍ, Allah also taught Adam alayhi salam the names of all things. وَأَسْكَنَهُ الْجَنَّةِ, وَأَسْكَنَهُ الْجَنَّةِ, and also placed him to reside in Al-Jannah. Also was mentioned, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala chose Nuh alayhi salam وَجَعَلَهُ أَوَّلُ رَسُولٍ أُرْسِلَ إِلَىٰ أَهْلِ الْأَرْضِ. He mentioned that Allah had chosen Nuh alayhi salam and made him the first messenger that was sent to the people. Because not every prophet is a messenger, but every messenger is a prophet. وآل إبراهيم, يعني Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also chose the family of Ibrahim alayhi salam. For Ibrahim يقال له أنه أبو الأنبياء, from the names that is given to Ibrahim alayhi salam, that is the father of the prophets. Most of the prophets come from his lineage. وآل عمران على العالمين, and also the family of Imran. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala اختار آل عمران بيتا للعبادة والطاعة. Allah chose the family of Imran that their house was known to be a place of worship and obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. ذُرِّيَّةً بَعْضُهَا مِنْ بَعْضٍ, yani a lineage, an offspring, descendants that some of them are from others. وَاللَّهُ سَمِيعٌ عَلِيمٌ, Allah is the all-hearing and knowing. جميع الأنبياء, جميع الناس, أصلهم آدم. All of mankind, their foundation goes back, their roots go back to Adam alayhi salam. So the lineages, everyone is from one lineage. Everyone in reality is from one lineage. That the father of all of mankind is Adam alayhi salam. That's why Allah, He mentions, يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء. Here it mentions, O mankind, fear your Lord who created you from one soul, and from that one soul created a spouse, and from them came many men and women. So the asl of mankind goes back to Adam alayhi salatu wassalam. Of the thing that's important also that a person is to remember from this, the impermissibility of evil characteristics such as being racism. As the Prophet Muhammad taught us, there's no virtue between someone who's black, white, Arab, non-Arab, other than having taqwa of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And for a person to treat someone different, lowly, because of where they come from, also shows that you're displeased with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It also reflects that you are displeased with Allah Azza wa Jal. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He mentions, لَقَدْ خَلَقْنَا الْإِنسَانَ فِي أَحْسَنِ تَقْوِيمٍ. Allah mentions He's created mankind in the best way. And from those ways Allah has created mankind, بِاخْتِلَافِ أَلْوَانِهِمْ وَأَلْسُنَتِهِمْ. The differences in their skin color, the difference in the languages that they speak. هَذِهِ مِنْ آيَاتِ اللَّهِ. These are from the signs of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Not something that is to be used against mankind as a way of oppression and belittling someone. La. Allah gave us these signs for us to acknowledge and learn about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, knowing that He's the one who's deserving of worship. But these are also from the trials that Allah has decreed بِإِرَادَتِهِ الْكَوْنِيَّةِ, with His universal will, that a person is to be patient upon. Unfortunately, you have those who transgress, but again, they're going to come a time when they stand before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There will come a time when they have to stand before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is of the things that the Prophet Muhammad first emphasized on the day of Fath Mecca, when they conquered Mecca. That the true virtue that differs mankind from others is the taqwa of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَهَذَا مِصْدَاقُ قَوْلِ اللَّهِ تَعَالَى. This is also affirmed by the statement of Allah Azza wa Jalla. He mentions, إِنَّ أَكْرَمَكُمْ عِنْدَ اللَّهِ أَتْقَاكُمْ. Those who are most honored and favored with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala are those who have the most taqwa of Allah Azza wa Jal. Allah mentioned Ali Imran being of those that He had chosen. In the following ayat, Allah mentions, وَإِذْ قَالَتِ امْرَأَةُ عِمْرَانَ رَبِّ إِنِّي نَذَرْتُ لَكَ مَا فِي بَطْنِي مُحَرَّرًا فَتَقَبَّلْ مِنِّي إِنَّكَ أَنْتَ السَّمِيعُ الْعَلِيمُ فلما وضعتها قالت رب إني وضعتها أنثى والله أعلم بما وضعت وليس الذكر كالأنثى وإني سميتها مريم وإني أعيذها بك وذريتها من الشيطان الرجيم فتقبلها ربها بقبول حسن وأنبتها نباتا حسنا وكفلها زكريا كلما دخل عليها زكريا المحراب وجد عندها رزقا قال يا مريم أنى لك هذا قالت هو من عند الله إن الله يرزق من يشاء بغير حساب. So here he mentions إذ قالت امرأة عمران, when the wife of Imran, she said يا ربي, oh my Lord, إني نذرت لك ما في بطني. When it says Rabbi in the Quran, the meaning is Ya Rabbi. The meaning is Ya Rabbi. لكن حذفت النداء. The nida has been omitted, but it's implied in its meaning. ربي إني نذرت لك. Another is to pledge, to make a pledge, an oath, to do something. إني نذرت لك ما في بطني. That she pledged for what was in her womb as she was pregnant, and she pledged to give that child in the service of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because of the things that was known at that time, you have the ma'bad, the place of worship, and servants of the house of worship. She was offering her child. However, she mentioned when she gave birth. When she gave birth to a girl. Allah already knew what she was going to give birth to. Allah already knew. And even for her initially, this was something that would not have exactly pleased her in terms of what she intended. And that's something that was known within the culture of the Arab. They didn't enjoy having a daughter. That was considered to be a bad omen for some. And as we know, the practices that they would put their children, the girls, to death at an early age. ولهذا قال الله تعالى وإذا الموءودة سئلت بأي ذنب قتلت. When the girl child will be asked why she was murdered. For what sin did she do? Other than the fact that she was born as a female. Wallahu musta'an. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bi-Islam نهى هذا الشد نهيا. By way of Islam, Allah prohibited this in the most severe manner. Also knowing that those who receive that injustice, they will have their time on the Day of Judgment where they will be asked what was their sin, what did they do to deserve such a punishment. As I mentioned, the boy child is not like the girl child. And then she mentioned وَإِنِّي سَمَّيْتُهَا Maryam, and this is the mother of who? The mother of who? Isa alayhi salam. So despite maybe not getting the initial intention of what she wanted, that the child would be a servant in the house of worship, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala still accepted that child from her and gave her use that would be of great virtue, and that was to give birth to the Prophet Isa alayhi salam and the messenger. So again, Allah accepted her supplication, and of the thing that's mentioned, said وَإِنِّي أُعِيذُهَا بِكَ وَذُرِّيَّتَهَا مِنَ الشَّيْطَانِ الرَّجِيمِ. I seek refuge in you for her and her lineage from the accursed shaitan. And from this we learn that the parents should make dua for their children. The parents should make dua for their children that Allah protects them and preserves them from the accursed shaitan. And of the things that the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam taught us, ثلاث دعوات مستجابات لا شك فيهن. There are 3 supplications that are answered, and there's no doubt about that. From them he mentions دعوة المظلوم, the dua of the one who is oppressed. Also, دعوة المسافر, the dua of the one who is traveling. وَدَعْوَةُ الْوَالِدِ لِوَلَدِهِ, and the supplication of the parent for their child. So the Muslim should make abundant dua for their children, that Allah protects them, Allah keeps them steadfast, and the likes. Because with your children is of the ways that a person will be tested. As it mentions, فَتَقَبَّلَهَا رَبُّهَا بِقَبُولٍ حَسَنٍ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accepted Maryam in a good manner. وَأَنْبَتَهَا نَبَاتًا حَسَنًا, and also raised her in the best way. وَكَفَّلَهَا زَكَرِيَّا, he also put her in the trust of Zakaria, that he would look after her, that she'll be under his care. So again, these are all signs that the dua of the wife of Imran were answered by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Of the thing that's mentioned, كُلَّمَا دَخَلَ عَلَيْهَا زَكَرِيَّا الْمِحْرَابِ وَجَدَ عِنْدَهَا رِزْقًا. Every time Zakaria entered upon Maryam, he found that she had provisions. Of the things that is mentioned by Ahl al-Ilm in the Tafsir, she would have the food of the winter during the summer, and the food of the summer during the winter. So he asked, how did you get this? Because as we know, in many places it's still such the case. They only have food according to the season. If it's not the season, you're not going to see that food. But as for Maryam, she had food outside of its normal season. So when he asked, she said to him, قالت هو من عند الله. This is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Acknowledging this favor that she has, this risk that she has only come from Allah Azza wa Jal. That Allah has bestowed this favor upon her, and also in gratitude, is referring those favors back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Inna Allah yarzuqu man yasha bighayri hisab. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala provides for whomsoever He wills without any limit. The Muslim is to trust this. The Muslim shouldn't worry about their wealth. The Muslim should strive to focus on taking the means to accumulate that which will suffice them, that which will allow them to fill their needs, take care of those they need to take care of, seek wealth to do acts of goodness, and then put trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah will provide for whomsoever He wills. And that's why Allah mentions, وَمَنْ يَتَّقِ اللَّهَ يَجْعَلْ لَهُ مَخْرَجًا. Whoever fears Allah, Allah makes a way out for that person. And this is in general, whatever your situation is of hardship or difficulty, whatever it may be, have taqwa of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah will make a way out for you. Even if in the beginning it doesn't seem so. Even if in the beginning things seem difficult or you don't see a way out. You as a Muslim, your objective and obligation is to have taqwa throughout the whole situation. In every single day and aspect of your life, that you fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to the best of your ability. And you have trust in Allah Azza wa Jal, that Allah will make a way out for you. No matter how long it takes, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala سَيَجْعَلْ لَكَ مَخْرَجًا. Allah then mentions, وَيَرْزُقُهُ مِنْ حَيْثُ لَا يَحْتَسِبُ. Allah will provide for that person from means they could not imagine. And that's the reality. There are some people, they gain provisions, they don't know where it came from. But this is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There are some people, they've been looking for work, they couldn't find work. Someone calls them, offering them work. Where did this come from? It comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You see? All your duty is, your obligation, Allah Azza wa Jal. وَمَنْ يَتَوَكِّلْ عَلَى اللَّهِ فَهُوَ حَسْبُهُ. Whoever puts their trust and reliance upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah will always suffice them. Will always suffice them. That's why the Nabi says, قال حسبي الله ونعم الوكيل. Allah is sufficient for me and the best one that I can put my trust of my affairs in. That's the reality. Allah will always suffice you, and Allah is the best one that you can trust in. You trust in mankind, they let you down. But as for Allah, He's always in control of all of your affairs. That's why Allah mentions, وَعَلَى اللَّهِ فَلْيَتَوَكَّلْ إِن كُنْتُمْ مُؤْمِنِينَ. Upon Allah, rely upon Him if you are truly believers. No matter what your situation is, never rely upon yourself and think that you can handle the situation. You are good. La. Anything that seems difficult for you, trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Rely upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Seek Allah's aid to make it easy for you. So, of the lessons that we learn from this, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala chooses those from His ibad that He will use for goodness. From them, there are those who have been chosen as prophets and messengers. From them are those who are righteous, that Allah has also mentioned in the Quran, such as Luqman, someone who's not a prophet nor a messenger, according to what is most correct. But Allah chose him and made him an example for the believers to learn from the advice that is mentioned regarding him in the Quran. Also, Allah chooses from His ibad those who are hamalatul ilm, those who are bearers of knowledge. وَكَذَلِكَ حَمَلَةُ الْقُرْآنِ, those who are also carriers of the Quran. Allah chooses whomsoever He wills to give this virtue to. But if the Muslim finds themselves in such a situation that Allah has chosen them and favored them with Quran and knowledge, then they are to show gratitude in using those favors in a way that is pleasing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Also, of the things that's important that we remind ourselves of, ad-du'a huwa al-ibadah. Dua is worship. All acts of worship are dua. And Allah subhanahu, He mentions, وَقَالَ رَبُّكُمُ دُعُونِي أَسْتَجِبْ لَكُمْ. Allah, He mentions, and your Lord said, call upon me, I shall answer you. And that's why the poet mentioned, Allahu yaghdabu in tarakta su'alahu wa baniya Adama hina yus'alu yaghdabu. Allah is angered if you don't ask Him. As for mankind, the moment you ask them, they become angry. But as for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah wants you to ask Him. And the moment you don't make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, no matter what your situation is, the first thing, go and ask Allah. Allah loves this. But when you don't ask Allah, this is what angers Allah, because now, كَأَنَّ الْعَبْدَ يَسْتَغْنِي, as if the person believes themselves to be self-sufficient. وَلَكِنْ لَا حَوْلَ وَلَا قُوَّةَ إِلَّا بِاللَّهِ. We have no might, no power except by the permission of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. As Allah mentioned, إِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدُ وَإِيَّاكَ نَسْتَعِينُ. It's only Allah who we worship, but in order to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we have to seek Allah's aid. If we just relied upon ourselves, we won't be able to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the best way. Abadan. But it's Allah who aids you. And that's why the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, he said to Mu'adh ibn Jabal radiyallahu anhu, that he always said at the end of the salah, Allahumma a'inni ala dhikrik wa shukrik wa husni ibadatik. Where he asked Allah to help him to, one, remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to be grateful and show gratitude to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and also to worship Allah Azza wa Jal in the best manner. That was advice from the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu to Mu'adh ibn Jabal radiyallahu anhu. And when he began giving his advice, he said, Wallahi inni la uhibbuk. He said, by Allah, I love you. And this love is for the sake of Allah Azza wa Jal. And when a person loves someone for the sake of Allah, the advice that they're given, it shows that that place is coming from a place of love. That you want goodness for that person. You want goodness for that person. And that's the likeness of what was advised by the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, of the most important things. Always seek help from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, especially in fulfilling the rights of Allah Azza wa Jal. And we'll stop here inshallah ta'ala and continue from ayah 38 tomorrow بإذن الله تعالى of Ali Imran. جزاكم الله خيرا وصلي وسلم على نبينا وحبيب محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.